Okay, and good morning to everyone. This is Peter at LSE Share Talk, and this morning we are here to welcome Roy Pitchford, who's the CEO of Vash Resources. Hello, Roy. How are you?
Good afternoon, Pete, in Zimbabwe. I'm fine, thank you very much.
Good to hear from you. Nice, clear line. Roy, I'm going to ask you firstly for an overview of your company, if you'd be so kind, please.
Pete, pleasure. The company up until last year was basically an exploration company and had spent the last 9 or 10 years getting funded from shareholders to undertake exploration programs throughout Zimbabwe and Zambia. And the ability to continue funding junior exploration companies ceased to exist. And the company made a fundamental change from being an exploration company to become a producing company, so that it would not have to continually get funding from shareholders, that it would get mines into production and be self-sustaining and be able to develop mines and its own cash flow and its own resources. Since making that decision, we have brought a mine into production in Zimbabwe on time and on budget, and it continues to operate as expected and has the ability to now expand and grow in accordance with our original plans for this mine. In Romania, we've acquired a 50.1% stake in a polymetallic mine that was operating way below capacity. Having got management control, we have reconfigured the production, reorganized many things, and we've got the production capacity up. We've got the grade of the concentrate up, and we are selling concentrate from our first polymetallic mine in Romania. And we're now looking to expand that by recommissioning the second mill and the second float line, which will give us additional volumes of concentrate, but more importantly, it will give us separate copper concentrate and a separate zinc concentrate, and we will get a higher price per ton of concentrate as a consequence of the two being separated. We have also put in place preparations for the reopening of another polymetallic mine in Romania called Baita Ply. We've had a long, drawn-out legal process which we've worked our way through, and we've complied with all the requirements in Romania. And we're now going through the license procurement process, which is regulatory and bureaucratic, and we have to tick boxes. We've ticked a great deal of them, and we are hopeful that the second license will be coming through, and we can then start recommissioning the Baita Ply mine. The Baita Ply mine is a much higher grade than Maniila, but is an underground mine, so the mining costs will be slightly higher, but the product will be much better and higher grade. So we're poised to start Baita Ply as soon as that license comes through. And that will mean we have 3 operating mines, positive cash flow, and then we can focus on the main reason that we're in Romania, which is the state mining company, Rumin, that has a huge number of very large and very attractive mines that we've done a high-level due diligence on. And we have selected a number of mines as projects to be developed. And we hope to have a string of projects in Romania as a consequence. Zimbabwe, there are a number of available opportunities. The difficulty with Zimbabwe is the ability to raise finance at the moment. The economic situation, etc., here is not conducive at the moment, but we've lined up a number of interesting possibilities. And when the situation in the country changes, we hope to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. So 2 mines in production, third one soon, and poised for growth.
That sounds very, very interesting, and thank you for that, Roy. I wanted to ask firstly, because obviously it sounds like you're getting all the ducks in line as such, and the company is going forward. However, there's been questions asked about some of the geopolitical stuff you've mentioned earlier regarding Zimbabwe and the indigenization process, etc. Could you expand a bit more on that, please?
It's difficult to be too precise because Zimbabwe has indicated that there will be variations to the indigenization policy, and that it's not finalized and definitive yet. I was at meetings this morning where it was indicated to me that in a particular investment opportunity, the percentages have already been amended. So
Right. Okay.
it's difficult to know exactly what it is that we are going to be required to do. However, understand that this indigenization process is not an immediate impact. There's a period of time that you have to implement it. What you do have to have is a plan
Of
that
course.
is being submitted and is acceptable to the state. Now, we do know that for the sort of first 26% phase of it, there are some broad guidelines that the state have indicated are acceptable, and we have prepared a plan according to those guidelines. The thing that has changed, and is a favorable change, is that the participation, indigenous participation, had to be individual or Zimbabwe-owned companies by individuals. And now there are certain state organizations like the Zimbabwe Mining Development Corporation, the Mineral Mining and Marketing Corporation, and other state organs and pension funds that are now regarded as indigenous. And so any shareholding that these institutions have will count towards your indigenization. So it's easier now to find people with finance to be able to take up their percentage rather than have to vendor finance it. So it's still unclear. There have been some positive improvements, and I believe there's going to be further positive improvements.
Well, those positive improvements, Roy, will that enable the company then to buy other assets at without needing finance, or will that from the capex that's been generated at PLC at the moment?
We, as you know, are in partnership with Pitchford PLC, with a
Yeah.
local investor group, and we together are looking at expansion opportunities within that joint venture. The giant mine, which is part of it, which now needs to be fully evaluated and the resource defined and a feasibility study completed.
Yeah.
So that will be done through the proceeds of what we are making at Pitchford PLC. We are going to reinvest the profits from Pitchford PLC to improve the volumes at Pitchford PLC itself by putting in a sulfide plant, and then to look at the adjoining mine, Giant, and to get that into production as well. But that's at the joint level, as a joint venture level. Above that, we have our own operating company, and at that level, we are looking at investment opportunities in Zimbabwe, and the ability to develop those will depend solely on the availability of finance. Now, where we source that finance is up for discussion and debate. We know we will not be able to raise it through the stock exchange. We don't think that would be the way to do it. And so we're looking at other means by which we would raise money to take advantage of these investment opportunities in Zimbabwe, which are really, really good because of the massive discount that applies to these assets in Zimbabwe at the present time. And the concern is that when Zimbabwe resolves its problems and is back in the international community, these discounts will disappear and we'll be faced with premiums.
Yes,
And
of
so
course.
it's a fine timeline and when you actually do it. And for me, as a Zimbabwean,
Yeah.
I have probably an emotional interest here as well as anything else. But I have a good team of people here who have their finger, we think, quite well on the pulse, and the timing is critical. And we don't think that it's going to be too long before these discounts start to disappear. So I really want to get my skates on and get doing something here as soon as possible.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And obviously, for investors looking for the long term, that means that there's lots of potential within the company going forward in Zimbabwe.
I think so, especially when everything in Zimbabwe gets re-rated. All the assets and all the investments in this country will be re-rated when it joins the international community again.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to carry on too much about the political side of things. However, I just wanted to get your view as a Zimbabwean as to when you think that might happen, when they might join the international. That's been the question that's been going on for the last decades, really. Your thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
Well, look, I mean, statistics are on our side. Each day that passes, we get closer to the time when we will be back in the international community. It's interesting to see that the IMF is out here and the World Bank, and they are engaging with
Yes.
the
Yeah.
government, and the government is responding positively. The mood in Zimbabwe is changing, and I know we've had these mood changes before,
Yeah.
and we've been disappointed. But I think the general feeling amongst Zimbabweans of all walks of life is that there will be change. It will be change for the positive, and that it's not too far down the road. So, to give a precise date is impossible, but there is this positive vibe that's developing in the country.
Thank you for that, Roy. I mean, what I was trying to get from you there was possibly, is it a view that it could be 2017, 2018, regarding that ascension or that return, should I say?
It could be either of those dates, or it could be next month.
Wow, that would be very, very interesting. Okay,
Yeah,
Roy,
it's just don't know.
it's a fluid one, isn't it?
Mm.
Okay, I wanted to then move on, Roy, if possible, to ask you about the situation in Romania, which is looking very, very positive at the moment. And I read that obviously you're waiting for the licensing laws to change, but you mentioned earlier that some progress has been made there as well.
There's two aspects to this, Pete. Um, the general investment and mining regulation regime in Romania has to change. It's a closed sector. It's not easy for international companies to come into Romania and invest in mining. They still have many of the rules and regulations from the former era, political era, that are in place and have to be changed. So gaining information on mines, and bear in mind all the mines were state owned,
Yes, yeah.
and these records and information are held by the state, and there are very strict controls as to how you can access that information. And it's been a major uh, inhibition for foreign investors to come into Romania. Where we've been fortunate is that our senior employees have the clearance from the government to access these records and to be able to review them. And so we've got a bit of a unique situation in that we can have a look at this information and we can review it and decide on which are good and which are not so good. And we've already done that with the Ramin State Mining Company. We've done a high level due diligence, and we've identified which are the best projects and the order of merit, etc., etc. And the government is wanting to change the rules and regulations to make it easy for companies like Bosch to get in and do this development. And the government has said to us, look, let's not waste each other's time in doing this debate at the moment, because we've still got to change the laws. And we will keep you briefed on how we're progressing, and they do keep us briefed. And when the time is right, we will then enter into the serious negotiation about these state mining companies in the future. So in the meantime, what we've done is we have purchased mines that were privately owned, that were purchased off the state some time ago by Chinese investors. And these Chinese investors bought these two mines, and unfortunately, they did not have a mining background. And so the method in which they operated the mines and didn't do the capital development meant that the mines eventually became uneconomic, and they couldn't make them work. So with Maniila, we were able to buy the 50.1% ownership in the mine, and we were able to apply our expertise, reorganize things, and get the mine profitable, and now we're expanding that mine. The second mine, the buying to the license that we have been waiting for, was caught up in the administration state that the company we bought was in. Now, in the West, to take a company out of administration, you simply put money in it and a judge declares that it's out of administration and you're off to the races.
Yeah.
The regulations in Romania are far more complex, and it just doesn't work that way. And so we've had to go through many legal hoops in order to get this subsidiary company out of administration. And we elected a route which was recommended to us by Romanian legal advisors to merge this company that was in administration with a newly formed Zimbabwe Vast Resources subsidiary, which was clean. And by merging the two and striking off the company in administration, the administration falls away. Now we've achieved that. So the company is delisted. There's no more administration. Now we have to go through the regulatory process of applying an association license from the head license owner, which is another state mining company, and get that approved by their board, etc., which has been done. And then the authorizations are given to the government and to the mining regulatory authority, and the licenses will come through. Now, Romania has many counter checks because of the old regime. What would take one review and one signature in Western countries and in Zimbabwe and South Africa it takes 5. There are 5 different departments that are involved, and each department has to go and so it's a regulatory box ticking exercise that we are working through. And when all the boxes are ticked, you get your license. Now, it's hugely frustrating, not only for the shareholders who have been waiting for this license, but for us as management.
Of course,
because we're on the ground there and we're monitoring it on a day-to-day basis, we are seeing the progress being made. And so we are in anticipation of getting this license. We've got everything set up at Baita in order to get going the moment the license comes through. We've got the funds in place. And so we're poised to go forward as soon as that license comes through.
Thank you for that reply, Roy. That's very in-depth reply there as well. Can I ask then, obviously the regulatory process you said is quite turgid, takes a long time. How is the partner that you have there, Remin, assisting you with that process? Or are they separate? Are they separate just dealing with the 5 assets you've identified?
Yeah. No, Remin is a separate company. We're dealing with 2 state companies. One is called Baita SA, which is a state company, a small state company that used to own the polymetallic deposit that we want to develop, and another mine next door. And so we're dealing with the small state mining company over the Baita operation. Remin, the main state mining company, is in itself in administration, but all the shares are held by the state, and the state holds all the licenses, etc., etc. So with that, in whatever we negotiate with the state, and I don't know what we're going to negotiate, what the final outcome is going to be, obviously we will only do it and only progress it with the licenses being ceded across to start with. That's the first process. And one of the benefits of doing what we've done with these smaller mines in Romania, and I've moved to Romania and I'm now living in Bucharest to try and understand the system. We've gained that understanding. We now know how the process works. We know it in great detail, so that when we come to do the next negotiation, we know the pitfalls, we know what to look out for, and we will structure the next transaction completely differently to what we've done so far. There will not be a repeat of what we've been through up to date. So at least we've now gained that inside knowledge. We know how the system works, and we will be negotiating a completely different transaction next time around.
Okay, so that sounds to me that you've some big lessons have been learned over the past few years in Romania. With regards to that, have Vast and your team considered or have engaged with or employed any Romanian specialist geologists, because they've got a vast history. Sorry to use the word vast. They've got a large history of having a mining industry in Romania. Have you employed any of those specialists?
Oh, yes. We've got a number of very highly qualified, highly experienced Romanian geologists, as we have with metallurgists, mining engineers, etc. The one thing about Romania is that in the previous regime, the education, the universities were of a very, very high standard. And so the technical expertise that you have there is very, very good. They have a lot of experience, but understand for the last 70 or 80 years, they operated under a very strict communist regime.
Yes.
And any hint of entrepreneurship was stamped on. So you've got this pool of expertise, and the one thing that's missing is the entrepreneurial approach, the fear to think outside the box. Within the box, they're absolutely superb, and they're pretty good outside the box, but they've never had the ability to think outside the box. And they've now, through VAST, been encouraged to think outside the box. And if they've got recommendations, they are required and welcomed to make these recommendations, because in the past they weren't allowed to. Yeah, so you did what you were told and you get on with it. Now, this highly experienced, highly skilled workforce are free to actually make recommendations and improvement. And so, part of what we have to do in Romania is to bring the Romanian mining industry into the big wide world, where you are not dictated to, where you are actually master of your own destiny, and you develop your own career through your own ability and expertise. And I've seen a remarkable change of attitude and approach of senior Romanian people since being involved with them, and it's hugely encouraging. But we've got a way to go. It's not over yet. There's more to be done.
No, that sounds really good, Roy. I mean, the great thing about what you've said there is obviously you've got the opportunity there for VAST to become an enabler and a champion of the previous individuals that had the opportunity to work, and going forward, they then become champions of VAST. So if there's any opportunities available, they'll be championing that VAST should get it, because they've done the work and done the groundwork and invested in Romanian individuals. So that could work and come back for the benefit of the company, couldn't it?
I think so, and that's certainly our desire and hope.
Okay. I wanted to go on from that, Roy, and ask you about the mines in Romania and the technology which you've touched on before, that you were going to invest in the mines, and obviously the capex was going to be higher initially, but eventually you're going to get the payback. You broke even in January in Romania, and obviously since then some of the minerals and commodity prices have increased. Could you say anything more about how capex and profit is looking at the moment in Romania?
I can't make any comment on profit except to say that the higher metal prices obviously helps. Remember that January and February are incredibly cold months in Romania. Up at the mines, we had temperatures minus 20, minus 30. And in the flotation process that we use to extract the concentrate,
Yeah.
the temperature has an adverse effect on the recoveries
Right.
because
Okay.
we've got to insulate the buildings and et cetera, et cetera. And whilst we've done a lot of that work, it's yet to be complete. So whilst we managed to get the volumes out, which was in itself quite a unique achievement, there's been a slightly lower percentage due to the cold weather. Normally happens in January, February, but the higher prices have kind of offset that. So there are no alarm bells. But now going forward, with the cold weather behind us, we've done a lot of test work. We've got new chemicals arriving that indicate that they are better suited for our process. The insulation of the buildings is now no longer an issue. We are commissioning a second mill, as I said earlier, and a second float line at Maniila, so that we won't have zinc reporting in the copper concentrate and thereby decreasing the value of the concentrate. We'll have a separate clean copper concentrate and a separate zinc concentrate, and both will attract a higher value. With the higher prices and the higher volume, it's moving in the right direction. The capex, as you know, we've raised money. We've got the money to do the capex, and we're doing it in an orderly and thought through process. Uh, and once we achieve the first improvement, we then implement the second and so on. And so from the proceeds that we will be getting out of the mine, we'll be reinvesting that in capex and building up production, over the remaining part of this year.
Okay. You spoke about the having the funds available. You got in January via Creed £5 million, which you're planning. Well, it looks, or $5 million, is it?
Five
Which you,
million pounds.
£5 million, sorry. Which you're getting in four tranches. And I've just gone through my calendar here, and you've had the first tranche. The next tranche is due in April. Third tranche in July, and the last tranche of 1.1 million in October.
Yeah.
So they're going to be issuing, what is it, 156.25 million warrants each time, converting to shares. In January, the shares were at zero point 0.8, and since the funding, which was the Cornerstone Seed funds, was meant to accelerate the growth and the company moving forward. However, it seems to have impacted the share price. Could you comment on that and your thoughts on that?
Yeah. What has surprised me is the volume of shares that Boss trades. If we just backtrack a little bit,
Yeah.
the last quarter of 2015, in October, November, December, if you add up the daily trades, you will find that in the 3-month period, over 1 billion shares in Vast traded hands. Now, our free float was probably between 1.3 and 1.4 billion shares at the time, and 1
Right.
billion of them changed hands. And that's an unbelievable volume of shares. And this is post announcing our first gold production,
Yeah.
our first sale of concentrate and the commissioning of the 2 mines, the resolution of the court cases, etc. So all this good news that we had released as management, we fully expected the share price to go up.
Of course, yeah.
Unfortunately, the share price went down because of this huge volume of shares that were trading hands. And, I don't have an explanation as to why that happened. It was quite peculiar. When we got the funding from Creed, and I was able to say, right, I've got the funding I need for Manila, I've got the funding I need for Baita, and some spare cash for the rainy day or for a new project.
Yes.
I further expected, that funding in place would help with the sentiment. It's had the opposite effect. And in January and February, we traded 1 billion shares. And I think March, when we add up at the end of March, we probably traded 1 billion shares. So in 6 months, we will have traded 3 billion shares. Now, I know people have sold, etc., but somebody's buying. And for every shareholder that's maybe coming out, there's a shareholder coming in. And it's a phenomenon that we are looking at, and we're delving into it, and we're trying to understand exactly why this is and who it is, because nobody has notified us of an accumulation above 3%. Now,
sorry, Roy, I was going to ask that because there hasn't been any RNSs that I can see of confirmation of holdings, and with that number of volume of shares being traded, you would have thought by now somebody would have had to have done that, whether it's a Romanian, a Zimbabwean, an American company, whoever.
Yeah, well, in terms of the AIM regulations, they are required to do it.
Yes.
But, when we look at the weekly transactions, etc., we can see that some of our longer-term shareholders have acquired and have increased their holding and are obviously averaging down. We haven't seen any one entity go above the 3%. So either they're just ignoring the regulations, or they are holding, more likely, they are holding these shares in different subsidiaries or different nominees.
I see.
We just don't know, but we're drilling down to have a look at it and see what's going on.
Okay, I'm going to ask you this question. This might be a bit, might be a bit of outside the box sort of question. If that is a possibility that some of these entities are acquiring and averaging down, and they go beyond 3% and they've not recognised, obviously the AIM is going to be contacting them at some point. However, if these entities between them are working in cohort and potentially go nearer to 29%, vast currently sitting at a huge discount to value, from my estimate anyway. Is there a risk that VAS could be impacted by someone coming out of the blue saying, you know what, we've got 29%, and today we're going to make a move of an hostile bid for VAST? Is that a risk?
For somebody to do that, to get to 29.9% without notifying us, they would have breached the regulations.
All the rules, exactly, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, is it possible? I suppose physically, yeah. Is it possible? Is it likely? I don't think so. And, they would have to make an offer for the rest of the company. I know it would be a lowball offer. I just don't see that happening because we just don't see any one entity building up.
Yeah.
So
or declaring that they're building up. Yeah.
Certainly not declaring it. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I don't think so.
Okay. Right, Roy. I wanted to ask one question really, because there's been you're in areas where Zimbabwe and Romania where historically companies have been entrenched by geopolitical and regime changes and so on and so forth. As a company, you've come a long, long way in the past 10 years, and you transitioned from being a mining exploration junior to becoming a junior production miner. Given all the things that have happened over the past 10 years and still going on currently, Is there anything that you want to say to investors and other mining companies as to what you've learnt and maybe would help them going forward as a junior explorer to transition to becoming a miner?
Yeah, look, we have chosen two very difficult jurisdictions. If I
Yes.
can pass the buck, I inherited those jurisdictions. They were not of my choosing, but I would have chosen Zimbabwe anyway. I didn't know anything about Romania, so I obviously would never have gone there. But we are there now, and we have a unique opportunity. The main thing I think I want to sort of leave with people is that the opportunity for us to have raised funding, the vanilla type, standard type of funding, either debt or equity, was absolutely impossible. And so we had to look at something different. And I would like to point out too that we as VAST did not approach Creed. Creed approached us and said that they could provide us with the funding opportunity and that they could do it in a very short period of time, which they delivered on. And they came to the party at a time when we were not able to raise any money. We needed capital to get money ELA going, and we needed to have capital demonstrated to the Romanian authorities that we had capital ready for buy it apply, because without it, they are reluctant to give the licenses. So the thing is that we've gone from being an explorer to a producer in two very difficult jurisdictions, and the fact is we are fully funded.
Yes.
I have all the capital I need to do what I need to do. And so if you think of junior companies, junior mining companies, how many have got 2 mines operational in the last year in these incredibly difficult times? We've done that. We've got a third ready to go. We're fully ready to do the third one. And we will have 3 profitable cash-generating mines by the end of this year. I think it's an absolutely unique situation.
I would have to agree with you there, Roy, because a lot of companies now, even the larger ones, which I won't mention on this podcast, are heavily indebted and having to go back for more and more cash. So you've done exceptionally well. I want to say, with the share price at the level that it is this morning at 0.31, somebody is buying and trading the stock at what I would deem to be a bargain price. So long-term wise, investors at this level are getting a bargain. However, I need to ask you this very last question, is a sense of, will investors be able to look back at March 2016 and say, why was that share price down at that level a year from now, and be rejoicing at the great work that yourself and the team have done? I think they will. But I need to ask you the last question. What's going to stop this from going below 0.3 between now and next March?
Shareholder support.
Yes.
Okay. If I hadn't had the volumes of shares traded in the last quarter of 2015, before Creed even was thought of, if shareholders had mopped up and bought and supported the share price, we wouldn't be. We would have had the opportunity to do more vanilla type fundraising. So, my real plea to the market and shareholders is for support.
Yeah, and patience. Yeah,
because patience. Because somebody's going to benefit when this is all washed through.
Yeah,
and it's done, and the world economic situation improves, resources improve, commodities improve. It's all going to re-rate, and this is going to be a great story. And I know that I've got a number of very patient and very supportive shareholders and buyers. notwithstanding our incredibly tough environment. And, I really appreciate those who have stood by us. And, we all together look forward to sunnier days. And certainly, I have no doubt that this company, once it gets its third mine going and gets the other two to full production, etc., can look forward to growing its production base.
No, that's commendable, Roy. You've done a brilliant job at Vast, and I wish you well and the rest of the team good fortune with it. Is there anything else you want to add before we close this off, or should we say that's...
I think we've said most of it, Pete. Thanks to the supportive buyers and those that have stood by us, and request for further shareholder support.
Okay, Roy. Well, from the team at Vast, I thank you very much for giving us and being courteous enough to give us this this interview and this podcast. We will speak to you again, and we'll look forward to hearing from you again. If you've got anything you want to share with us, please contact the team, and we'll do another podcast with you in the near future. And wish you all the very best.
Thank you, Pete. We will certainly do that.
Okay. Take care and enjoy the sun in Zimbabwe, Roy.
Will do. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye for now. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.